Welcome to Worth Watching. What's this? Well, let me explain it to you. A lot of people say to watch at least the first 3 episodes of a show before deciding whether or not you think you might be interested in watching the rest of it. Does a show have a bunch of episodes and seasons and you're just not sure if you want to invest hours of your time sitting through all of that? Well, they say watch the first 3 episodes to see if they resonate with you enough to convince you to keep up with the rest of the series. So I'm going to be watching the first 3 episodes of a show I've never seen before and tell you my thoughts on the episodes. And then at the end, we'll see if I would think I'd be interested in continue watching the rest of it. For the first 2 videos I've done for this series, I've covered shows that I knew had relatively positive reviews. This time around, I was feeling a little bit spicy. Get it? Do you get it? Before we get into the show itself, let me explain to you what I know about High Guardian Spice. I saw like one of the first trailers when the show was coming out, and honestly, I thought it looked neat. The art style's a little bit meh, but I've been surprised by rather unassuming looking art styles before. What I know about the show is people don't like it. It came out to notoriously terrible reviews and reception. Everyone was bending over backwards to throw pot shots at it. I'll be 100% honest, I'm not even sure if this is actually a Magical Girl show. I think it is, hence why I'm covering it now during Magical Girl May, but as far as I know, I could be totally wrong. More importantly though, I feel like this is the best opportunity to really test my worth watching method of watching the first 3 episodes. It's easy to compel yourself to keep watching a show that has a lot of high praise surrounding it. Even if the first episode of Arcane didn't wow me, I knew it had a good reputation for a reason, so it made it a bit easier to decide to keep going with it. But when it's a notoriously bad show, lots of times people will judge too quickly after only seeing the first episode, or maybe they'll just see some clips out of context and think that's all they need to know whether or not this is a good or bad show. Well, let's put this all to the test and not waste any more time. Let's check out High Guardian Spice. Looks like we're starting our adventure with these 2 girls, Sage and Rosemary. Okay, this isn't so bad. The art style is cute, our girls seem excitable.
Did you pack your your toothpaste? Ooh, I'm nervous. High Guardian! Whoa! Academy!
Well, it's not funny, and they're using like modern language?
Be totally fearsome dudes.
An odd choice, but that's fine. It's not like I'm a stranger to modern fantasy stories after all. The girls say goodbye to their families, which is a nice touch, and they depart off to the academy. And they have a pet mimic? Is that a mimic? That's really cool if it is a mimic. I want that. Giving credit where credit is due, the music is really nice so far. Yo, this opening song is like every 90s opening all mixed into one. It's not bad. A little long, but it's sung well, I think. You know, the characters have very simple, cute designs, but the backgrounds are like surprisingly detailed. Look at these trees, hot damn. Okay, so very disappointingly, I don't think this is actually a mimic. Instead, it looks to be more like a sentient bag of holding, which is also neat. Honestly, at this point, the show is just giving me cool ideas for the next time I play Dungeons and Dragons with my sisters. Are they dating? One thing I forgot to mention before is I know this show is really progressive with their characters. Apparently there's several openly LGBTQIA+ characters, which is really cool. Speaking of which, these 2 characters, Anise and Aloe, are a perfect example of that. Anise is Sage's cousin, and the 2 girls get to crash at their place. I will say, 8 minutes in, and the story has been very languidly paced so far. There really hasn't been anything of a conflict. It's mostly just been taking its time to lavish over the world building. I can already tell all the details of the lore in this world are thoroughly thought out. I suppose it's not a bad thing to set up all the elements of the world and lore in the very beginning of a show. It makes sense. It's not like the girls need anything explained to them. They live in this world. So the show is taking its time to set up this stuff so the viewer can get an understanding of things, while also showing us our girls' personalities. It's a bit slow, but it hasn't been like boring or anything. As the girls are resting, Rosemary, who looks way better with her hair down by the way, has a nightmare about her mother.
She always comes home.
Yes, mother of the protagonist syndrome. Side effects include children with pink hair. Did anyone else play Asugo Academy? This is a reference. I'm making a reference to that.
Wah! Pass! Baby, it's got rabies! Do you want rabies?
You know what? That one was actually funny. Good delivery from Sage. So like the girls eat breakfast, they see the market, they run into a girl who's definitely going to be their friend because she's fucking in the opening with them.
My locket! Dad told me to wear it today. It's meant to protect me.
Finally, 13 minutes in and there's finally some sort of conflict for the girls. Anyways, this locket must be super important to Rosemary. It probably has a picture of her mom inside of it.
I have a locket with a picture of cheesecake inside it. It was iconic.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
They realize it was stolen by this little creature and give chase, tracking it down to its nest.
It's trying to attract a mate. With my locket? This feels weird.
Indeed it does! In fact, we sit around and watch the thing dance around and grow wings and fly around and get a girl and fuck up Rosemary's locket for like too long. Takes like 3 minutes of the girl sitting around watching the Trixie chirping and doing its mating ritual thing, and like, I don't know, 3 minutes feels like 2 minutes too long, you know? Anyways, yeah, they rip the locket in half for some reason.
I didn't want to lose it.
Why act like it was just cheesecake? Was that a joke? The jokes here are so hit or miss for me. Anyways, the girls go to a blacksmith to fix the locket and meet the other friend from the opening, Parsley.
Have you finished sweeping the stables?
No.
Then get back to it!
I don't know why, but her voice is weird. Like, I can tell her voice actress is struggling to make their voice sound deeper. After resting again, the next day finally arrives and the girls get to finally see the academy. And that's where episode 1 ends. And so far, like, what was everyone being so pissy about? Like, I'm not gonna act like this is spectacular. It is only the first episode so far. But it's not bad. It's definitely not the, oh my god, eye roll cringe, so bad, so awful, animation is terrible and the story and world building is stupid, I kept hearing everyone say. I was fully expecting this to be torture, like trying to watch the second season of Genlock, ugh. But this? It's fine. It's cute. I'll admit this episode is a little slow and there wasn't much action or anything, but as far as cute fantasy fluff goes, it wasn't half bad. The jokes are about 50-50 for me, but that's not a terrible ratio. I also heard that Rosemary is this ultra annoying, dumbass moron who is torture to listen to. And no, she's fine. She's got some depth, she has some funny lines, she's generally fun. Honestly, at this point, I'm wondering if this is a case of just a bunch of adults watching a show that's clearly aimed for children, and then got upset when it wasn't as stimulating for them as something like Game of Thrones. Some of you all are getting spoiled with shows like Steven Universe, The Owl House, She-Ra, where it's a kids' cartoon that features war, discrimination, emotional trauma dumping. Not every children's cartoon is gonna be that way, guys. Let's keep going into episode 2. Finally, we get to start their school stuff. Fantasy Battle School was always such a fun concept to me. Let's see what this is all about.
You know each other? That's so cool. Time's my roommate.
Hooray! The 4 girls are all together! Woo! Hijinks can now ensue!
As it is your first day
Of school, in case you forgot.
They're really trying to make this old lady the funny, sassy, says it like it is type of character for the trio, but she comes more across as just kind of annoying and interrupts the others. She's like the biggest miss for me here. The students are tasked with writing down their own guardian vows, and then they have to say it into the magical whole thing before dinner. But now it's time for them to finally shuffle off to class. Oh boy, I wonder what sort of fantasy class they'll have. Weapons training? Spellcasting? Fantasy creature studies?
ethics! The first class of the day is ethics.
No two guardians have the same schedule.
I didn't think we'd have to split up this soon.
Oh, I think I understand. This show isn't for kids, it's for middle schoolers. Fuck, I remember my first day at middle school, having different classes at different times, and I had none of them with my sisters or friends. Now I look at this conflict for the girls, and to me, a full grown-ass adult, I realize how minor and unnecessary all this worrying is. But as a middle schooler, this sort of thing was a huge deal. Figuring out your classes, figuring out when you're gonna hang out with your friends, that was like the biggest problem for me back then. No wonder Rosemary is going to ethics. I studied that back in 7th grade. Suddenly a lot of things make sense now.
Attention, class. My name is Wyverna Dredge.
That woman is just a tiefling. I'm telling you, it's just Dungeons and Dragons idea fodder for me. Anyways, the 4 girls go to class, they're in class, Sage meets a bully, and then they are in class. Sorry, there's just not much for me to talk about. Like, I love seeing regular world building stuff for things like this. Honestly, the problem I always have with shows that are fantasy kids go to fantasy school is that I just want to see them being in the school and doing regular fantasy stuff. The whole gotta run around and save the world thing always gets in the way of that. They go to class, explore some ideas for extracurricular activities, go back to class. Honestly, it's all very cute fantasy fluff. They get back to the hole at the end of the day, and we hear about some of the different students' takeaways for their vows.
I aim to leave a legacy.
The greatest power is kindness.
Fortitude.
Loyalty.
The triad tells the students about the actual guardian vows, and it would be nice, except you can really tell they were running out of budget here, and they just reuse animation constantly. Hell, they swap places in the middle of sentences at times.
I honor my name, my family, and my one true self. My multitudes.
Weird, for being such a big feeling moment and the climax of this episode, it's odd that they decided to go with such a lazy decision on how to animate it, but I also get the feeling this probably didn't have a great budget. Anyways, that's where episode 2 ends. And yeah, just like episode 1, it was cute. Lots of world building. It's very fluffy slice of life fantasy. On to episode 3. The girls are hanging out when Rosemary tries to use her sword to kill a fly and accidentally throws it behind her back and it cracks on a rock. Not even a minute in, and that was probably the biggest chain of contrivances I've ever seen in a show. Wow.
First lesson is how to take pride in your weapons.
Listen, you pointy...
Knife eel.
Rosemary is bummed because the sword was her mother's and it's really special and important, but also, if it was so special and important, why are you using it as an oversized fly swatter? Anyways, Rosemary visits her professor Caraway to cover her training, and there she discovers that Caraway used to know her mother. Too bad we can't actually focus on this because we keep bouncing over to Parsley and Sage doing their own things. Parsley gets tasked with fixing a picture, then falls down a trap hole, and Sage is making a potion when the bullies come in and fuck it all up for her, which also was kinda contrived. The bullies just randomly toss a magical ingredient into her potion for no reason. Bullies always tend to feel really, really poorly written in shows like this. And on top of all these contrivances, the episode is just really weirdly paced. And like, it's fine if a story wants to juggle multiple plot threads in one episode, but we don't stay on any one of these 3 stories long enough for things to really get going. And we always cut away just when something starts to happen.
Is that your sister?
I'm transgender.
I don't know that word.
This is actually a really good example of how children's media can be used to introduce more complex topics to kids. It's easy to understand, Rosemary is curious but not rude about it, and yeah, regular people kids come across might be something that kid doesn't understand. And this is a good way to explain it in a way that a kid might still be able to grasp.
I was born into a female body, but it wasn't the right body for me.
It might be a bit simplistic, but again, this is for children. I don't know how I feel about it being a magic potion. I guess it makes sense for the in-universe world-building concepts, but I'm not trans, so I don't think I have any authority to decide whether or not the magic potion thing is good or bad, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But more importantly, kudos to High Guardian Spice for not dancing around the topic or being vague about it. Lots of times shows will be like, we have LGBTQIA+ representation, but then they won't actually have it. There'll be things implied, blushes, certain looks, hand-holding, and smiles. So for High Guardian Spice to just speak plainly about this, and like in an honest way, is very refreshing change of pace. Anyways, Calloway tells us a story about their time adventuring with Rosemary's mother. And look at this! Look at this budget! Nothing animation-wise has been too impressive or anything. In fact, there's been quite a few mistakes here or there, but it's not awful. But now, during this combat, they're going all out! Was that blood? Like actual blood? Oh my god, that is actual blood in a kid's cartoon. What? Unheard of. I did notice at the beginning of the episodes this blurb from Crunchyroll, and like, I'm confused by what it means. Strong language and violence, not suitable for children. Why? Literally everything about this show is pointed towards a younger audience, or at least a middle school audience. Is this why people tore it apart when it first came out? Because Crunchyroll insisted it was some mature show for adults? This was actually so befuddling to me that I tried to look into it. I was worried this was only here because of the LGBTQIA+ elements of the show, which would be super scummy, but no, there's like actual blood in the show. I looked it up and apparently there's more blood in future episodes and like the mildest of swearing, if you can call it that.
This is for trapping me, you bastard!
I got all this info from a Crunchyroll thread, and no joke, I found one of the funniest lines posted here from someone named Runic. Their description of one of the episodes is, quote, "Elf girl doesn't have a smartphone, so inexplicably decides to turn to demon summoning. This sentence is now my new favorite thing ever." Now, I don't think the word bastard and some blood is enough to warrant a show being labeled as for mature audiences only. I think kids can handle this type of language and violence, especially if the target demographic is for kids in their middle school years. But I also know that's the kind of thing a parent or guardian would have to decide on a sort of case-by-case basis. Anyways, let's get back to the episode. We learn Rosemary's mom also broke the sword when she was younger, so Rosemary shouldn't beat herself up over it. During all this, Sage's fucked up potion accidentally turns the cat into this larger cat, who is now also voiced by Cam Clark.
My mouth can say words now.
Cam Clark is so good. He does everything. He never does a bad job. Love Cam Clark. Oh, and Parsley got like a pet crab or something. I don't know. Her story kind of ended up being nothing. Like, it was cute, but it didn't really match the transformation theme that the other two stories had, so this. And they end off the episode with a hint that a darker, more sinister plot is lying just beneath the surface. I should have known. It never stays as just cute fluff with these fantasy school stories. Anyways, first things first. After only watching these first 3 episodes, would I want to keep watching High Guardian Spice? Surprisingly, yes.
I'm going to explode.
You're not going to explode.
I wholesale expected this to be my first no for this series. I thought I was gonna hate this show. Everyone would go on and on and on about how bad it was, but like, it's fine. It's a fine children's cartoon. Is it the best thing ever? No, but the characters are cute and fun and the world is creative. It's not bad. It's not for everyone, obviously, and I'm wondering if that was the thing that got everyone shitting themselves over it. This very clearly is meant for a younger audience. Like I said, my guess is its target audience is middle schoolers. But at the start of each episode, there's this dumb warning about language and violence, even if it doesn't appear in that episode specifically. So I wonder if people thought this was going to be for adults. One of those cute art style with hardcore mature characters and themes type of deal, but then people watched it and like, nah, it's just a kid's show that happens to have actual blood. Rather than having the stab wounds resulting in a magical glitter bomb going off, it's just more realistic with blood. It's not like they're stabbing people, at least from what I've seen so far. And the mildest of language and LGBTQIA+ representation seems very suitable for a middle schooler. So I'm just really confused that this show got blasted with so much shit when it first came out. It's perfectly charming, exciting enough, a little slow with its pacing, but it's not terrible. And it's a shame because there are no shows for middle schoolers. I remember when I was in middle school, I was very torn on what I should be watching. Kids' cartoons felt too childish for me, but adult content felt too overwhelming. I wanted something more mature than learning to share and remember your manners, but something not as mature as drinking alcohol and having sexual misadventures, you know? Unfortunately, I think the biggest stake in the heart for the show was the piss-poor marketing. The show got landed as mature audiences only, and I think that made it seem a bit inaccessible for its real target audience. This obvious children's media got lumped in with the adult stuff, and the adults took one look at it and tore it to shreds for not being catered to them. And you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna be honest. From what I've seen, personally, it's just been a bunch of crusty weeaboo men sitting around and crying about two things. Either A, it's wah, this isn't a real anime. They have circular features and round eyes and look like a Western cartoon. Which, like, okay, cry me a river, you entitled baby. Heaven forbid a show has a fucking unique art direction. What, do you only watch shows where the characters look like traditional anime characters? Heaven forbid Crunchyroll try to expand their audience more, you know, which would be a benefit for the whole website. It doesn't belong on Crunchyroll. Well, Crunchyroll fucking made it. You know, also statistically, people in Japan don't use Crunchyroll to watch anime. Crunchyroll is a Western website for Western audiences to watch anime. Is it really that hard to grasp the simple concept that they might want to branch out with their art direction a bit? And then the other thing I see most crusty internet dudes crying over is B. I don't like representation in my show, it's bad. Real anime doesn't have LGBTQIA plus representation. And you know what? The people who are actually trans or gay or any of the colors of that big beautiful rainbow who talk about the show seem to actually like it. Or at the very least they seem to judge it on its actual merits. It's not perfect, obviously. The animation is simple. It's nice to look at, but it's not doing anything too special. The writing is sort of languid and it's all mostly cute character fluff and world building. I've lucked out because I like that sort of thing, but I understand if you want a little more adventure in your fantasy stories, this one might be a bit of a miss for you. But I think if you're going to turn down the show, it should be for reasons like that. The story isn't what you're looking for. You're not a fan of the pacing. The characters don't entertain you. And it's such a shame, because I really liked it. Hell, if I saw this as a middle schooler, I bet I would have been obsessed with the show. You kidding me? As a dragon-loving, fantasy-craving, adventure quest aficionado like myself, this show would have been awesome as a middle schooler. What a perfect example of how my watch 3 episodes rule could have worked out. If you thought High Guardian Spice looked cool, then maybe check it out yourself.
I will be your guardian.
Hey, I'm lesbian.
I thought you were American.
Bye, Dad.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
You have my sword. And you have my bow.
And my axe. Aha! Me too!
Shout out to my $10 patrons, you're all amazing. Nako, James Dodds, Cool Duck, Andrew, Ramiel, Valhalla Knight, Chamomile, G Extreme, Classy Critic, Trey Not Dre, Noah Perkins, Sunny Shy, Azoth, Great Bar, Pentamenta, Jake, Storm, Amber, Lawleth, Livid Aries, Hype Man, Luno, Zero to Hero, Keithan, Isaiah, Josh, Joseph, Scaring Crows, Blue Wiz, Danny Boy, and Holly Anderson. So yeah, have you seen High Guardian Spice? Please, be respectful in the comments below. There are people of different diversities than you, and please be respectful. If we're gonna talk about how you don't like the show, don't be a bigot. If I see hate speech or any sort of like derogatory language in the comments, you're gonna get instantly blocked. So be respectful in the comments, please. So if you have seen High Guardian Spice, did you like it? What did you think of it? If you haven't, and you also like me heard it was this terrible, terrible show, has this review changed your mind? Do you think it might be better than everyone said? What are your thoughts and opinions about everything I talked about in the show? And I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.